Brett, you just made it in, and you were coming from...
Hey, good morning, David. It's good to see everyone again. Appreciate the invitation back. Yeah, I just got in this morning, so glad everything ran smoothly, and I get to spend a few minutes with you all.
You missed a great evening last night. There was some limoncello, there was some food. Was there just a little bit of food, right? Yeah, there was a lot of food. I think there was a few food comas when people got home. And there was an award ceremony, and you actually got yourself some hardware.
Oh, fantastic.
Alaska,
You'll have to update the branding, though, David.
Well,
Thank you.
Here's the thing. The awards are for past tense. So for the new branding, now you've got to work for next year's Frequent Traveler Awards. So for those that don't realize or don't remember, Alaska won the best earning and redemption ability for airlines in North America. So congratulations, Brett, to Alaska for that. And I will say Alaska Mileage Plan, which Mileage Plan is dead. Long live the next frequent flyer program. So on that, quick show of hands, who is up with the latest news on Alaska Airlines frequent flyer program changes? People who write blogs, hands down. Okay. Who has no idea what I'm talking about? Be honest, okay? There's a lot of dishonest people in the room. Great. So, Brett, a lot of changes at Alaska over the last period of time. You were here last year. We had a great chat. Dave Candy's right there. I think you were chatting with Dave last year. In that time, we've acquired an airline. We have relaunched and rebranded, or in the process of relaunching, a frequent flyer program. And perhaps some technical updates from a platform perspective as well. Can you talk us through a little bit, as a program head, what all that involves and some of the things that you've had to think about as you work through all of those challenges?
Sure, yeah, no, it's been a really busy year, not the least of which was last September when we rolled out our new loyalty platform with LPS. So I'm excited to have a few minutes with Christian, and I see Johannes on his team in the back there. So no, excited to kind of spend a few seconds there as well with you throughout the discussion. Is the back-end technology often doesn't get the limelight it deserves, but is really instrumental, I think, in what we've been able to do as Alaska Air Group over the past year on the rewards side of our guest proposition. So to your question, David, the combination with Hawaiian, we closed about a year ago this week, really unlocked the ability for Alaska Air Group to transform its business. And there's two components of that. One is the build out of our global network with long haul hubs in Honolulu and now in Seattle. And the other, which is particularly relevant to this audience, is the launch of Atmos Rewards, which went live on August 20th, and we'll complete it on October 1st when Hawaiian Miles officially joins Atmos Rewards. So a really transformational time for the organization. We're particularly excited about what Atmos can do for the business going forward. Having two brands, Alaska and Hawaiian, in the US market is somewhat unique. It's more common, Christian, where you are over in Europe, but it's a unique arrangement here in the US. And so for Air Group, Atmos becomes the way in for many of our consumers. So you think about Bonvoy, many of you are familiar with Marriott and what they did with their program and the design. It truly is top of house. You likely don't know their 30 brands, couldn't list them out if you were kind of forced to do so. But you know, if you go to bonvoy.com, you'll get the points, the status credit that you'd expect. And that creates a unique stickiness for that portfolio. With Atmos, we intend to do something similar. It's an entry point to our house of brands, which of course includes Alaska and Hawaiian, but also our 30 global partners. And so a unique opportunity for us to perhaps interact with consumers in a new way, recognizing that, look, if you live in Seattle, you'll come to alaskaair.com. You likely know that we're the 5th largest airline in the country, the largest on the West Coast. We're a force, 30,000 plus employees. Similarly, if you live in Hawaii, you'll go to hawaiianair.com. Now, if you're in Chicago, you may very well think that Alaska takes lumberjacks to glaciers, and Hawaii is where you go on your honeymoon. And so Atmos becomes our opportunity to introduce our brands, our portfolio in a new way, and that in and of itself is a big unlock for the organization. So I think specific to your question, David, the journey we've been on, it goes back a couple of years. I alluded to the technology work we did with Christian and his team last year, but a big piece of what we wanted to bring to market was a reimagined loyalty program. We had long held on to distance-based accrual, which we would go out and speak to consumers every couple of years, and we'd ask them kind of, is that driving behavioral shift? Is it ultimately delivering the outcomes that we wanted as Air Group? And so when we did this a couple of years ago, contemplating the Hawaiian combination, an interesting thing came back in the data, which was that the majority of consumers now actually prefer to earn based on revenue. And we were a bit surprised by that. When you start to unpack it, particularly with younger generations like Gen Z, that's what they're used to. They don't remember when every airline awarded frequent flyer points based on distance. They grew up with revenue. They shop at Sephora, they're rewarded on revenue. They stay at a Hyatt Centric, they're rewarded by revenue. And so that was really an important learning for us. At the same time, a lot of our loyalists that have been in Mileage Plan or Hawaiian Miles for decades, they love distance-based accrual, and we didn't want to take that away from them either. So this idea of choice-based accrual allows us to meet guests where they're at, as opposed to focusing on that top tier, the pinnacle of traveler that loves distance-based or revenue-based accrual because they're spending $10,000 on a long-haul ticket to London. We, of course, want them in the program, absolutely, but we also want the person that might be spending a couple $100s for that transcon flight to New York and wants to be rewarded the way they always have. So we're really excited that we've rolled out a program that we think is for every type of traveler, as opposed to just that top cohort of flyers. And so I'll kind of pause there, but no, it's a really exciting time for Air Group, and we're energized by the reception to Atmos rewards over the past couple of weeks.
Thanks, Brad. I mean, and last year when you were here, I posed the question to you that, a few years back, Alaska did disclose to the market that your own internal research had showed that, and correct me if I get the metrics wrong, but I want to say it was about 93% of your customers. I think you basically compared it to what we call the Delta model of revenue-based earning, at the time, which United American had copied, and you had showed that 93% of your members were going to be better off or neutral staying with distance-based, at the time. But last year you did sort of flag, hey, you know what? Maybe times are changing. We're going to have a look at this. And it's interesting you say that about the research with your customers, because I see two things. Is this debate about revenue-based earning is very much, in my opinion, an America's issue, or airlines around the world that have copied the U.S. legacy frequent flyer models over the years. If I think to the Australian market, for example, and I can think of examples in other markets around the world as well, we had Qantas, which was distance-based, Virgin Australia, which domestically was revenue-based, and in Australia there wasn't an issue because the issue is not how you reward points or miles. You can reward them by day of the week or the person's color of their hair if you want. It doesn't really matter. It's the earning velocity that matters. The value of how long will it take to earn a meaningful redemption. And what I mean by that is if you took a trip, say, from Brisbane to Melbourne in Australia on Qantas one way and Virgin Australia the other way, you might have earned 1,200 miles on one airline, and guess what? The other airline, you're going to earn about 1,200 miles as well, even though two completely different earning systems. And I think the debate in the US has been so myopically focused on these code words of revenue-based or distance-based, but really the issue that came out was when the big three dramatically reduced earning for everybody but the top earners. That's what caused the consternation. And two other things come to mind when we talk about this. When I think about Alaska as an airline, and I think about your route network, you say biggest on the West Coast, for example, I think about Hawaiian, I think about a lot of short haul, for example. It's very different flying styles in those customer bases as well. So I mean, thinking about how you're working to integrate those memberships between legacy Hawaiian members, legacy Alaska Air members. Quick hands up, sorry, audience participation. Who's gone through a program integration or merger? I see some cold sweats breaking out whenever we just bring this topic up, right? So maybe I'll throw this to Christian next. From a technical perspective, you obviously need to be thinking about how do we take two airlines, two existing legacy bases of members and all that old data and all the rest of it. Where do you even start?
There are several ways how you can do migration. You can do a mere technical migration, as we did last year when we got rid of Oracle Siebel as legacy system and replaced that with RPS Flight. So intransparent for the customers, frictionless, seamless. There was a short downtime for sure, but it worked, and the program, the configuration rule stayed the same. So this is the technical migration. But you also can think of a process migration and the complexity which came in now with Hawaiian. We are not a technology provider or a mere technology provider, also a solution provider. And in good collaboration with Alaska, we discussed what possibilities we can offer. And then a decision was made by Alaska to do a process migration. So as soon as was clear that Hawaiian was acquired, Hawaiian members were asked to sign up in the Alaska Mileage Plan program to be well prepared and to do a mapping in between the Hawaiian number and the Alaska Mileage Plan number. And this is the prerequisite now for the technical migration, where we provide our APIs to Alaska so that everything can run smooth. And I think the date for that should be mentioned. 26th of September is the due date that you actively mention that your program or your Hawaiian number should be mapped to the Alaska number, so that the technology behind the scenes can do the magic for the 1st of October.
You mentioned sort of the flexibility that you're building into the new program, and in case anybody missed it as you were speaking, and correct me if I get this wrong, but once the new program is fully launched, members will be able to nominate whether they prefer to earn under a distance-based model, a revenue-based model, or a segment-flown-based model. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think part of the design for Atmos, and alluded to this earlier, was this idea of building a program that offered value to all different types of travelers, as opposed to that top-tier traveler. And there's a couple of ways that we aim to address that. One is choice, which you've alluded to, David, and giving folks the ability to select how they earn. I think what's interesting, like within this room, we all care deeply about the velocity of points, to use your words. I think a lot of our consumers actually care a lot more about the way the program engages them. Can they earn with Lyft? I see our partner Built, can they earn when they pay their rent with their credit card? And so it isn't solely about that flight activity. And so part of it was, I think, adapting to that. And the second piece was we have this innovative offering that we call communities. And so we've long offered kind of a loyalty program within a loyalty program in the state of Alaska called Club 49. About 70% of Alaska residents actually participate. When we closed on the Hawaiian combination last year, within 3 months, we launched a similar program in Hawaii called Huaka'i by Hawaiian. These are great programs, great ways to engage the community. And so we're going to expand that next year. We're going to offer 4 new communities. An example is Families on the Go, which is for family travelers, as it were. And so for us, this is about creating a program that is unique. It's customized. I won't use the word personalized. I think it's kind of a stretch, but it's customized in a way that meets travelers where they're at, which the reality is the populations we serve, they're diverse and they're dynamic. And so we want a program that reflects that.
And so when we think about the communities, we think about the earning styles. What are the other considerations you, as a program manager, are thinking about, in terms of adding that value to make sure that now you have distinct member bases on top of your already distinct member bases that you had even previously between the 2 airlines, that you're adding value to the new program so it's much more holistic? What are the other sort of considerations strategically that you're looking at?
Yeah, there's 2 dynamics for us. And look, we're a US-based carrier, so we care deeply about the loyalty program. We also care deeply about our co-brand portfolio. And so I think like creating a tighter link between those 2 product offerings was critically important in the design of Atmos. You saw us, many of you likely saw us launch our new premium card, the Atmos Rewards Summit card. And so we were very intentional in how we scoped that particular offering. And it was less, to be honest, about competing with American, Delta, United, Southwest, and more about competing with American Express, Chase, Capital One, which to their credit have built incredible proprietary card products. And so a big component of Atmos was actually evolving our cards to be more relevant to today's competitive environment and to what travelers are asking us for. I see kind of Paul with the Senda, one of our great partners that we rolled out on August 20th. And so a piece of that was allowing our new Summit card holders to actually transfer their currency to 5 different hotel partners. And so again, it's this idea of how do we take inspiration from other players in the loyalty ecosystem beyond air, whether it's the proprietary cards, hotel, retail, and then build on that for how we engage our members.
Christian, we talk about all these features, that Alaska's wanting to add into the program, and for those in existing programs, particularly large programs coming off legacy systems, it's innovative. 3 earning styles is obviously the big headline, as part of it there, but also some of these other things that Brett's alluded to. There's a lot of features in the program, either now or in the process of being launched as the program continues to kind of roll out. From a technical perspective, my head is just exploding at the idea on some of these legacy platforms that programs are stuck on, being able to even change the method of earning style, for example, or partner integrations take a very, very long lead time to be able to actually get them integrated into the system for real-time transfers or something like that. How, from a technical perspective, a platform perspective, how you approach, or how does the platform allow the opening up of that flexibility for Alaska to actually be able to implement these great ideas?
Yeah, on a high level, we have a very powerful rules engine, which is capable of setting up by configuration which way to go, and independence of certain criteria. You have a member, you have certain attributes, you can decide based on the attributes which way to go. And with Alaska, the time frame, I think every year the member can choose which way to go, and it's just by setting up configuration. And if this is not sufficient, and there is some kind of customization, since we also be able of doing customization, but we try to prevent it because we're very much product focused.
Mm-hmm. And what are the hurdles that either you've come across during the implementation, or even initially before you underwent it, that you sort of flagged as these are the big things that we're anticipating, and did they come to fruition?
Big hurdles. You on the one hand have to look at the feature side. Do the business processes work in the right way? At the same time, you have to take care, since those programs are large scale, multi-million members, a lot of transactions, you have to take care that everything is running smooth and in time and within the scheduled time boundaries. And members and guests are usually, I don't want to say impatient, but if you have to wait in the internet, this is not good. So if you're just a back-end service, you have to ensure that answer times are good. And that's why we partner with AWS and have powerful scalability with them, and to ensure that programs can grow. And if Alaska makes a decision to acquire additional airlines, this shouldn't be at least a technology problem from our side. And we enable that.
And Brett, sort of similar question to you as you've gone through this process, and clearly there's a lot more to it than just an updated feature set in the loyalty program, as you've mentioned. What lessons have you learned from the airline's perspective or the program's perspective going through this exercise? Yeah,
no, look, LPS, Christian and his team, they were phenomenal partners. I'd also say that this is probably a migration you only want to do once in your career. Like, it is technically complicated. We were on a legacy solar Siebel-based system, had been on that for decades. And so migrating 500 million records, billions of dollars in loyalty liability overnight was a big undertaking. I think one of the things we learned was less about the data and more about all the integrations we had built on top of Siebel that then had to be migrated to LPS. That's where the real work was. It's why it took us 2 years. It cost us $25 million in kind of internal capital expenses to get there. But now the power, as Christian mentioned, of being on an AWS platform, it's scalable. So when we want to bring over the millions of members out of the Hawaiian portfolio, we can do it, I think, faster than any other combination has done, at least in the US market, over the past 25 years. And so it really is an investment. You have to believe in the foundation being important to build upon, which we of course do, but it isn't without its challenges.
And I guess question for both of you in terms of, obviously we're not done with the launch of Atmos Rewards and the feature set. There's a lot that are still launching in 2026, for example, that you can talk to without revealing secret sauce, but what else is sort of on the roadmap for now looking forward?
Look, I think that the reality for Alaska Air Group is we see loyalty as a key part of our competitive advantage. I mentioned we're the 5th largest carrier, and so the choices we make, we probably wouldn't make if we were the number 1 carrier with 80% market share in our 4 biggest hubs. We simply wouldn't. And so loyalty for us is integral to how we compete, how we grow. And I think what you'll see from Air Group over the next couple of years with Atmos is this desire to continue offering value to our members, disproportionate value vis-a-vis the other players in the industry. And so we've announced a lot that we have to get done in 2026. So our focus will be on executing and then harvesting, hopefully, the gains from all the investments we've made in the program.
And I guess one follow-up question, because this is not the only acquisition Alaska's done in the last decade. But if we think back a few years to the Virgin America acquisition, that also came with a very distinct member base, in the Bay Area, for example. When you're looking at managing the program, do you still sort of see that legacy Virgin America base as sort of a distinct group in terms of behaviors or purchase frequency, things like that, just other traits? Or, is it very much no, they're just part of the membership base now and they merge in with sort of, they're lost in the woods with all the other segments? Yeah,
it's an interesting question. They were fundamentally different transactions, and I think the benefit that we have now is a lot of the same people on the executive leadership team were around when we acquired Virgin America a decade ago. Now, the biggest difference, to be honest, is Hawaiian's a brand that has 90 plus years of history, therefore also has many decades of loyalty, attachment, card attachment, which Virgin America, while it was a powerful brand and they had done an excellent job building that base up, primarily in California, it was a very different type of integration than we now face with Hawaiian Miles. And so I think to your question, we don't segregate the legacy Elevate population in any way that would be meaningful. We, of course, look at San Francisco and LA and what we're building up in San Diego, where we're the largest carrier by nonstops now, but we don't think about them as discrete populations at this point.
In terms of future roadmap, Christian, besides just helping to make sure everything implements smoothly?
Yeah, I'm very happy that with Alaska, we now have the possibility in terms of individual loyalty. It's not targeted on individuals, but at least at 3 segments to establish that in the market. And this is growing. And I think that the most important features, as we heard yesterday, on the one hand is hyper-personalization, and on the other hand, building an ecosystem with partners and additional to grow the program, to make it more attractive and to gain customer engagement. And we're supporting that with all our features.
And I think we have time for one question. Michael, you should go get mic'd up. Do we have time for one question? Take advantage of the fact I have the gentleman up here. There we go.
Hang on.
Microphone coming right now.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, so I have 2 questions, actually. The first one would be, what is the overall time that it took for this implementation from kickoff until this past August? And the second would be, you have a lot of things happening, so how are you going to tackle fraud?
Yeah, it's an interesting set of questions, and so I might answer it 2 ways. So the LPS integration, which went live last September, it took us about 2 years. That was kind of a full-fledged effort. The build-out of Atmos Rewards also took us about 2 years. And so I think given the scale of our program, like there's a lot of intentionality. And so while we want to go fast, I think the reality is that going fast also comes with its impediments. And so for this type of transformation, something at the scale, I think 18, 24 months is a pretty reasonable timeline. Now, fraud is front and center. How I'd answer that is, I think as Air Group, as Atmos Rewards, we have more work to do on fraud. It's an issue with our program right now. And there's just basic things we need to get done, to be honest. So we put in place Okta verification, which is a little box you click where you pick the motorcycles and the bicycles and the buses to prove you're a human. And so that's kind of step one. The second, which is obvious to probably everyone in this audience, is multi-factor authentication. That is clearly the best way to address fraud. And so we'll be rolling that out here in the next few months. This is something we want to tackle for our members, and it's just also the right thing to do for the broader community.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Christian, so much. Let's hear it for them, please.
You're welcome.